Hi, so another warm welcome to another in our series of short videos aimed at helping practice managers in the day-to-day tasks of running a busy GP surgery. My name's Gerry and I'm a trainer for Thornfields Training and also an advisor for First Practice Management. And today's video is entitled Personal Resilience. It'll last about 10 minutes, so hopefully it'll be a good watch. Essentially, the video is based on a number of elements of a full day course that we put together and delivered for a number of CCGs on the topic of resilience. But for these 10 minutes, I'm going to focus in particular on answering three key questions. Firstly, what is resilience? Secondly, how do you measure your own resilience levels? And thirdly, how can you set about improving those levels if you're not completely happy with them? So in some regards, this video is incredibly unique in the series which we're presently recording and maybe some of which you've seen previously, in that this isn't about a practice manager helping others. This is purely about equipping practice managers with the skills and techniques to help themselves, to make sure they're sustainably in good shape to carry on doing the great work that they do into the future. So this is particularly for you and to help you become more resilient into the future. So let's start with the basics. What is a definition of resilience? Well, you may or may not know that it's rooted in two Latin words that mean either elasticity or pliability, which converts in everyday speak to phrases such as bounce back ability, mental toughness, and coping strategies. Combine those definitions with quotes from such great philosophical masters as Rocky Balboa, when he said, "It's not how hard you can punch, but it's how hard you can take a punch and keep going." And hopefully you're now starting to get a clearer understanding of what resilience means. But just in case the penny hasn't quite dropped yet, I'll give you a metaphor that hopefully will help. Let's think about the comparative attributes of an egg and a ball. Yeah? Both are fit for a particular purpose. However, an egg, when it encounters hard times, or more precisely, hard surfaces, cracks, whereas a ball, in the same circumstances, will just keep bouncing back for more. So the question is, when it comes to encountering difficult times, is your response more akin to that of an egg or more akin to that of a ball? Whichever you think your response resembles, there's no need to fall into the trap of thinking, if that's the way I am, that's the way I have to be. As resilience is less about nature and more about nurture. It's based on a set of attributes which, if you don't presently have, you can choose to adopt, and through practice you can improve your personal resilience levels. So how do you assess your present level of resilience? Well, we can do that together. We can do a self-assessment based around the following 8 characteristics. So I'm going to read out 8 questions and just do some mental calibration, where 1 is at the bottom of the scale, so low, and 6 is at the top of the scale, so high. Yeah? So first of those is, how self-aware are you? How much insight do you have into your personal strengths and those things that could be classed as development needs? So rank that on a scale of 1 low, 6 high. How good are you at spotting situations where the pressure you're experiencing has the potential to boil over into stress? Again, rate yourself 1 to 6. How well developed are your short and long-term effective coping strategies? So what mechanisms have you in place to help you when the going gets tough? Routinely, How positive is your outlook on life? Again, 1 low, 6 high. How confident are you in your own abilities? How readily available to you do you have a trusted support network? Next question is, how likely are you to interpret the lack of success in any one situation as a learning opportunity versus failure? And last, so question number 8 to assess yourself against, how likely is that when you have thoughts about a certain situation that you don't apply any perspective and so avoid inaccurate thinking? So if you've done a mental tally in terms of how you've rated yourself against each of those criteria, as a rough guide, the higher the score, the more resilient you are. So we've now done a personal resilience stock take. So what do we do now? If you've assessed yourself in terms of resilience and you want to bulk up that resilience muscle, what can you do? Well, I'm going to suggest you reflect on adopting one set of behaviours, which I'll go through in a bit more detail, and also cultivating a particular habit. So the following are the behaviours I suggest you adopt. They're thinking approaches to situations you may come across, and I'll go through these separately. So first of all, when you reflect on a situation, don't filter out the positives and focus purely on the negatives. Sometimes we can be our own harshest critic. We can just think about those things at the margin that didn't go as well as they could have gone, and we just take for granted the bulk of the activity that went really well. So we get a very, very distorted picture. Don't personalise. So in any situation, it may not always be just about you. We sometimes think that the world revolves around us and that what promotes the actions of others is purely their assessment of us, when actually we forget to realise that they may have other things in their lives that aren't about us. So first is don't filter, second is don't personalise, third is some stumbly language I'm going to use here, which is don't awfulise or catastrophise. So every molehill isn't a potential mountain. Most of the disasters we experience aren't in reality, but are in our thought processes. And so the fear is one of anticipation rather than reality. And finally, the last strategy to adopt is don't polarise. Not everything is binary. And by that I mean the choice isn't between good and bad, or right or wrong. Normally it's a graduated scale whereby there's a shade of grey in between. So it won't naturally default to a good solution or a bad solution. So that's the thought processes I think it may benefit you to think about and the behaviours to adopt. And to supplement that, I'm suggesting there's a habit that would really help you in adopting those behaviours. And the habit is to create a reflective learning log. And so what do I mean by a reflective learning log? Well, the methodology is really quite simple. The approach is that you just create a journal, and either on a daily or weekly basis, you create a record of circumstances that you found particularly challenging. And you reflect on how did it go. What went well, so don't forget what went well, but then think about what could have gone better. Yeah, and particularly factor in what your thoughts were at the time, what actions did you take, and what beliefs underpin those actions. And then you can consider some perspective about the context of the situation, and also whether it highlights any needed behavioural changes by you, or any needed or knowledge that needs to be supplemented by you. And the importance of creating a physical journal to record these things is, one, you get into the very disciplined approach of making yourself do it, and through reflection you'll develop as an individual. And two, research has shown that the very activity of writing these things down mean that it will connect more closely with your brain and more likely to make a difference into the future. So, as with all things, very powerful, but very simple. The hardest bit is adopting it as a discipline and creating it and turning it into a habit. So my suggestion is that you make some space for yourself to create a reflective learning log, and through those reflections possibly build up your resilience over time. So that's it. So define resilience, tell you how to assess your own resilience, and giving you some possible tools and techniques for how to develop your resilience levels further. So that's all for me for now, and all that remains for me to say is bye till next time.